We're jumping into all the things that blokes don't talk about.
One would say taboo topics. If you're sitting there and you're not happy with what you've got and you're still going to just stay in your lane, don't complain about being unhappy.
A lot of what we talk about here at Better Bloke is trying to encourage guys to give it a nudge. What happens if they don't? Being able to speak and articulate yourself well is a skill that everyone should just try and improve on just a little bit. You don't have to think of a Jordan Peterson professor of psychology as someone who speaks well.
Although he is very articulate, I couldn't help but get Kermit the Frog vibes from him.
What rules, you sons of bitch?
Something that blokes don't talk about, I'm actually pretty bad for it, is...
Welcome to the Better Bloke podcast. I'm Matty.
I'm Rob.
And we're just a pair of average blokes on a mission to try and be a little bit less average.
We're going to speak about all things highs and lows of what it feels like to be a bloke, plus speak to some legends along the way about what it takes to be a better bloke. Let's get stuck in.
We're jumping into all the things that blokes don't talk about, and that's not the sad shit. We talk about that a bit, but it's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's all those other, I guess, facets of what we encounter as blokes that just aren't spoken about that much.
One would say taboo topics.
Taboo, taboo, or just interesting things that happen in society that just don't really get the light.
Well, I think they might get the light, but it's just, as blokes, we don't talk about shit. Where women probably do.
I'm lucky we're talking about it. So let's jump straight in.
Yep, let's jump in. What do you got?
What do I got? It's a great question. Let's start with, I guess, taking on too much work because you feel like there's a responsibility. I think that's one we're all kind of guilty of in one way or another. Letting your mouth overload your back, as we've said before. And then your ability to deal with that. Boys don't want to admit that they've bitten off more than they can chew because it makes them seem like they're not capable. And I think we're all trying to feel capable out here.
I think everyone wants to feel capable, but I think it's more so the fact that you admitting that, fuck, I can't do this, you're somewhat admitting defeat or failure to an extent.
Yeah, and that's something I've faced like my whole life, is just do more and more, try and get everyone's fucking approval that, you know, I'm capable of doing this. I'll take on more and more. And I've pretty much gotten away with it for the most part. And, you know, I encourage guys to do that, to, you know, do more than they think they can because that's how you're going to achieve more and all that. But there is a limit. There is a limit. And when you find it, it doesn't feel great.
No, but that's something that we'll look at some of the guys we've had on. We're getting guys on that are achieving some pretty incredible things. And they're doing that by maybe biting off more they can chew or stepping out of their comfort zone to do those things. So we are encouraging people to do that. But not everyone's going to succeed in doing those things. Like, and it comes back to that whole, it's okay to fail, but you need to accept it. But if you sit in that space of not wanting to overload yourself, you're just going to be stagnant and a bit of a boring bloke, essentially, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not saying that. Like, I think guys should load up and they should achieve. But we put up a post a little while ago and it was like from the perspective of a dad. Did you see that one?
I did see that one.
Where it's like, I'm trying to be a good father. I'm trying to love my wife. I'm trying to pay the bills. I'm trying to save for the vacation. I'm trying to mow the lawn. I'm trying to, you know, do all these things. And when you read it line after line and you're just like, fuck, man, this is every normal bloke. He's loaded up. He's got a lot on his plate. And it's his role and his job to be able to manage that. I think it's okay to, you know, recognize a point where you're like, fuck, I might have got one or two many things on this plate. Maybe I need to reassess and take one or two of them off so I can do all of the other ones better. And that's what some blokes maybe struggle to talk about.
I think most blokes would struggle to talk about that just purely for what we said before. Like it's admitting defeat. Like all of that stuff is what's seen as like, you know, every man can do this. It's, you know, it's the generic bloke shit. It's all this. There's no set standard for a bloke these days. Like, I mean, we everyone's got the characteristics of what they attribute to a bloke, but, you know, having all of those things ticked off as like, you know, your weekly jobs that you want to do, there might be blokes that don't relate to one fucking thing of that.
Oh, well, all my problems are not on that list.
Yeah, so there you go, where like all of my problems are on that list.
Yeah.
So, you know, my grass isn't mowed, you know, savings are slowly growing up for a holiday away with family and all that sort of stuff, workload, all this shit. But I don't know, I just deal with it. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's just something I wanted to bring up because like I went through it myself the last couple months, and there was just a moment when there was like 4 big things happening, and like the charity's sort of getting bigger, BA's going, there's work, there's house stuff going on, and I'm like, uh-oh, like I can see this is all growing and getting too big, and it's gonna be too much. I need to delete one of these things. And I had to really kind of assess what was going on before it did crumble. So
this is where Matty tells us that he's stepping away from the podcast.
Yeah, we're going to sub out. We're going to get Powerfish on here full time.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
No. The charity was my shining light. It's the one thing I wanted to put more time into, and that's why I had to free up other stuff. So, yeah, that's my first point.
Oh, it's good. And that's you essentially setting the standard and setting the example using yourself. It's going like, you noticed from outside looking in, this is something that Trey sort of spoke about, is looking at yourself in the mirror and going, what the fuck do I need to do? So you looked at what you needed to do and you made that judgment call yourself because no one else was going to make it for you.
Yeah, and it was one particular week. It was just a big week, and like my close mates have been telling me for like 10 years, you can't do it like that. You're going to burn out. And I've always crushed it in one way or another.
I've had a few conversations with you and I can see that you're burning out.
Dude, I had this one week where I'm like, shit, it's happening. Like I've gotten away with it for like a decade, and I called up my mate that has always told me this. I'm like, bro, I think I found a limit. And he's like, good. Do something. I'm like, yeah, okay. All right. Kind of going off the back of that, which is hand in hand, is the standards you set upon yourself. So it's not so much directly related to your workload, but it is setting a standard of what you expect from yourself. And I know we kind of talk about that stuff, and I think guys do it personally. They know the guy they want to be, or they know something they want to achieve. But whether or not they talk about that with their boys that much, I think that's probably not always spoken about as much as it should be.
No, not in any of the groups that I'm in anyway. Like, there's not too much of an onus that you put on yourself with like what your set standard is. And it's definitely not something that I speak about with the boys. But obviously, like the groups of mates I've got, we celebrate the wins and they're like, oh, fuck, you're crushing this, you're doing this well. But you never end up talking about like what your standard that you want to hold of yourself is.
Yeah, it's more like you're having some beers and, I want to renovate the kitchen next year.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yep.
It would feel weird to be like, I'm really like trying to get my self-development on and just trying to like, I don't know, all the things we talk about, hold myself more accountable. I'd like to actually like trust my own words when I say something, and that's going to help me lose weight. I don't know. But it's a weird conversation you wouldn't tend to have with like blokes at the pub.
No. I mean, I can't imagine there's too many blokes at the pub that you're just randomly going up and speaking of that stuff about.
Nah, just when you're with the boys, like I think it's good. Like I got a couple friends where we will talk about that stuff. And once you air it to someone else, it's the same as Dane said when he's told blokes advice, he's going to lose weight. He's like, shit, now I got to do it.
Yep.
So, if I've told my mates, like, this is what I'm trying to do by the end of the year, I've set my standards. I'm gonna give it a good solid crack.
I think it's good if you're setting your own standards, but if it's something that you have no control over, where it relies on other people, maybe keep that shit only to a few people that you're telling, because you don't have any control over what happens with that. So, yeah, see, I'm on the fence with that.
Well, I've caught myself doing this a fair bit in the past. It's like something's on the horizon and I think it's going to happen. And I don't know if it's a brag but I've put it out there like, this is what I'm doing or this is what I want to do. But it came from a place more like maybe I need validation that this is the right thing to do, or maybe I just want people to know I'm doing something cool. but it didn't feel like it's from the right place.
It's more of an ego thing.
Might have been more of an ego thing or a validation thing.
Yep.
Because I'm nervous and I'm taking a risk and I'm a bit scared. I want people to kind of be like, it'll be okay.
Was validation and ego similar?
No, I think ego is more related to, stroking your ego. I did this. I want someone to tell me how fucking great I am. Where if I'm genuinely concerned that something's going to be a risk, I've made the decision to do it based off my own processing, which is just off my own ability to pull on my experience to make a decision.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to have a sounding board of other people with different experiences to be like, I see what you saw based on what I know. I think it's good. Or, bruh, I think you miss a mark there, or maybe try it this way or this way or this way.
Yeah, so just getting another perspective from an outside looking in type thing.
Yeah, which is, that's good to talk about with the boys, a bit unrelated to setting the standard for yourself. But yeah, I don't know.
There's all this talk about manifesting stuff now, but at the same time, if you do voice something and manifest it, you have to go through with it, and there's a very good chance that it's not going to fucking happen.
Voicing that you want to do something and manifesting it like this is something that would interest me, it'd be cool, all that stuff is different to doing it from a place of bragging. Like letting people know that you're doing this cool thing, which is what I kind of touched on.
Yeah.
And I've done that in the past, and it makes me feel shit. So I guess don't tell people that you want to do this and you think it's a good thing just because you want them to see you more positively. Like if you're in conversation with someone and you're just doing it in a way that's not bragging, that you're genuinely interested in this and you think it'd be cool, I think it's fine, but don't count your wins until they happen.
Something that blokes don't talk about is what about selling yourself?
Sexually?
I'm sure there's plenty of blokes do that. We had one on a couple of
he's done quite well, but he's more than happy to talk about it. Shout out to Girthmaster.
No, like selling yourself in the sense that, like your achievements, or like we spoke about this, and I'm actually pretty bad for it, is like labeling myself average just because, I am comfortable in, playing that average bloke role. What's your views on it?
It's hard because we live in Australia where we have this tall poppy syndrome, right? So you got to be pretty careful of talking yourself up and saying you're doing good things, because even if you just say, hey, I'm doing this and this and this, and if you're actually doing a lot of good things, people will be like, this dude is bragging, fuck him, right? But at some stage you need to, especially if you're in business or you're doing some form of influencer stuff, you have to be like, hey, look, I'm doing this cool stuff. Like, follow me, support me, come on this journey with me. I want you as part of it. Like, it's no ego bullshit. So there's definitely an element of promoting yourself or that is important.
Yeah, see, I think I just see myself as average because it's sort of a self-preservation thing.
Yeah, I think you just
where
struggle.
People won't undersell. Like, you sort of, if you undersell yourself and then you over-deliver, everyone goes, oh, fuck, look at him.
Yeah, if they're even watching though. Because if you
make them watch.
By overselling. So this is the thing. The audacity of these fucking life coaches, right? These life coaches with no life experience jump out there and they start talking all this stuff about how great they are, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars by talking absolute shit about themselves. That pisses me off. I don't know. That's just a life coach rant.
I mean, it depends how many emojis you put in a post.
Dude, link in bio, sign up to my course. I don't know. I'm a bit controversial there on saying you shouldn't promote yourself, but don't call yourself something you're not. If your best business is teaching other people how to have a business, you're not that good at business.
Well, they say the quickest way to get rich is write a book on how to get rich.
It's depressing.
But at the same time, they're going out there getting after it. And that's what we're about. We're about promoting that. But also, you're a fucking snake if you do that.
Yeah, I stand by it. I just don't think it's ethical the way some of these people are doing it. And you know who you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone knows it. Like, yeah, you got to be doing it ethically. If you're selling value and you don't actually have the value, you're just talking yourself up and essentially tricking people with your marketing that you got value. I just find it unethical. Sell a product that's actually going to help someone and you're going to have more longevity. And if you don't have the skills to sell that product, don't sell it.
And isn't that marketing in every aspect though?
Marketing done right is by having a product or service that will genuinely provide value. That's where you make money. It's like, I have something of value. I need to show you how it will give you value. You receive the value and you tell all your friends about how much value it got. Boom. That's what it's about. If you trick someone into buying something they don't want, they're going to talk to their friends negatively, negative word of mouth, reputation dies, companies won't last. So marketing done right has to start with a good product or service.
Yeah, I just tuned you out for half of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, on the back of that, something I think guys don't talk about, and especially in Australia where our vocab is, we're not well known for our linguistical prowess, right? Being able to speak and talk and articulate yourself well. And I think that's an undervalued skill for all adults.
I think so. And I'm not one that's probably known for my articulation or linguistic skills. I can if I need to, if I'm in a professional environment where I actually need to articulate my words, I need to have a proper conversation with, just say I'm speaking with the CEO of another business. I will go in there full blazing guns. I'll be articulate. I'll present myself very, very well. But in everyday conversation, I probably mumble a bit much. I probably, don't really have the full thought process into a conversation like I would leading into a meeting. And that's, I would say, the majority of Aussie blokes going around.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you need to learn so many big words that no one can understand what you're saying. But it's sort of one of those life skills that, you learn how to speak and you speak like the people around you. But actually taking the effort to go and improve it, that's like a step you have to take. You got to research a little bit about how you should talk. Like, I don't know. I just think for a lot of people in a lot of jobs, and just life in general, whether it's dating, talking to your wife better, being able to communicate and getting how you feel out through your mouth is a skill that everyone should just try and improve on just a little bit. And I know it sounds kind of dicky, but if you think about it in the context of rap artists, right? So we're talking thugs, gangsters, guys talking about bitches and hoes and coke and cars. They seem like, they're just tough dudes. But the reason, someone like Tupac was so influential was his poetry with words. He was so articulate. And the way he was able to put together his lyrics painted a picture for the people listening. They were able to feel something. And to think of him as a linguistic genius coming from his world, like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to think of a Jordan Peterson professor of psychology as someone who speaks well.
Yeah, that is very true. And sort of even there with you mentioning Jordan Peterson. So I listened to a couple of podcasts on the way down here today, and then Jordan Peterson came on. And so I was listening to Australian podcasts, then put on to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And although he is very articulate with his words and he's a very, very intelligent man, I couldn't help but get Kermit the Frog vibes from him.
That's his voice, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could be articulate and linguistically super far ahead of everyone else. If you sound like Kermit the Frog, you can't really...
People pay a lot of money to hear him talk, so
they do. And
I think he's doing okay.
There's nothing against him. I enjoy his content.
There is Kermit the Frog memes with him.
There is. Okay, I haven't seen him. It wasn't until this morning after flicking from, an Aussie lingo podcast to Jordan Peterson that I'd picked up on it.
Yeah, well, if you look at all those top podcasts like him, Chris Williamson, they're kind of on the same level of being articulate. But then someone like Joe Rogan is a bit more like, you could say, bro-y like us. but he's still very skilled at being able to navigate and actually say what he needs to say his point, which it's two different styles of communication. A lot of people are going to relate more to the Joe Rogan thing, but don't think that he hasn't really worked on that skill.
Oh, he would have 100% worked on it. It all comes down to reps. How many episodes has he done?
2,500.
So every single one of those episodes is a rep.
Yeah.
And if you do something 2,500 times, you're going to be better at it as long as you're doing it the right way. So the whole thing, like, practice makes perfect, that's bullshit. Perfect practice makes perfect. But yeah, if you do something wrong the entire time, you're always going to be shit at it. You might just be better at being shit at it.
All right. The dangers of staying in your lane. A lot of what we talk about here at Better Bloke is trying to encourage guys to give it a nudge.
Yes.
What happens if they don't?
You're just stagnant. Like, if you're happy just being where you are, like, that's cool. But there's a lot of guys that we speak to that aren't happy with just being where they are. And I mean, we speak to a lot of guys that are happy with being where they are. Like, just say someone's got, you know, a house, a mortgage, a couple of kids, they're in a job that, you know, it's not giving them their purpose in life for a job, but like their purpose is to just, you know, have a good household with, you know, the family. That's cool. Like, they've got their set standard of what they want to achieve and maintain as happiness. That's sweet. But if you're sitting there and you're not happy with what you've got and you're still going to just stay in your lane, don't complain about being unhappy.
That's fair. Do you think if, like, a lot of people say they're happy, right? You know, 2 kids, mortgage, job that is average, okay, standard, they don't love it. Do you think if you really peel back the layers, they would genuinely believe they're happy, or they're using that as an excuse to stay away from the discomfort that finding something different and better would bring them?
I don't know if it's the excuse for, like, staying away from discomfort, or more so that once you have kids and, you know, you've got a mortgage and all that sort of stuff, there is more to lose if you go out on a limb and take a risk to better yourself. I think that's more what it is. That, you know, as blokes, you want to be that provider, you want to be that protector. If you're taking, like, in anything that you do financially to try and better yourself, you're taking a risk. When you've got people that you're providing for, it sort of puts more emphasis on the fact that if you do lose, you lose fucking big. You don't want to do that. No bloke wants to feel like they've failed in, you know, providing for their family, protecting their family and all that sort of thing. So if you can just cruise through and be stagnant in doing what you're doing, but you're maintaining a household, that's probably the reason not many people do it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you got young kids, you're kind of maybe strapping in for the next 15, 20 years. This is kind of what life's going to be, and it's enjoyable for me. I'm okay, and then we can figure out stuff later when the kids are older. I can see that's exactly pretty much how my parents did it, and I'm sure that's the story of a lot of Aussie households.
And then you got me just going out on a fucking limb sitting here with you.
just on a Wednesday.
Yeah. But in saying that, like, you know, Jess is a fucking weapon and she's holding it down while we're out here shooting our shot and trying to do some cool shit. So I think that's where it comes down to, where if that's something that you don't talk about with what your goals and your aspirations are and doing that, and just say, like, you've got a wife, you've got a missus, and you're not telling her what your goals and aspirations are, how the fuck is she going to know to be like, hey, look, you know, I'm going to do my bit to hold down the fort while you go and do this stuff. You need to communicate.
And vice versa. Like
100%. If Jess wanted to go out and go, look, I'm going to go do this and create a legacy doing this, fuck yeah, 100%. I would back her to the fucking hills and I would do everything in my power to give her every opportunity to go out and chase that.
Yeah, that seems like minimum standard for marriage. If you're not doing that level of communication,
yeah,
fucking get your act together.
But I think there is, like, and that's something that everyone just goes like, oh, you know, yeah, every marriage there's always that level of communication. There's not always that level of communication. That's something that probably doesn't get spoken about either, is communication in marriage. Like, that's something that everyone always needs to strive towards working better on. Even if you feel like you've got good communication, you can always be better at something.
100%. The usefulness of pain. So Alex Hormozy speaks on this, and he's an entrepreneur that's done pretty well for himself.
He's a bit of a name.
And he's like, look, journaling, ice baths, all that stuff is bullshit. Morning routines, sure, fine, whatever. Yes, I agree that you need a driving force, but he doesn't agree that the driving force needs to be positive. His whole driving force was a big fuck you to everyone that told him he couldn't.
Yep.
And that drove him, an angry voice in the back of his head. And it came from pain. It came from disagreements with his father. It came from people telling him that his ideas weren't good. And I don't know if people speak about it too much because it sounds unhealthy using pain as a driving factor, but it works.
I mean, it doesn't really matter what your motivational driving factor is. If it works, it works. And pain's one of those things that, well, it comes down to like there's lots of different types of pain. Like you can have like physical pain where you're like, oh, this sucks. Or you can have emotional pain where, you know, you're feeling sad and whatnot. If you're going to sit in that and not use that as a motivating factor to get yourself out of it, like what's the point in doing that? Like use that pain for good. Like you use it as a good purpose. Don't just sit in it, feel sorry for yourself. Fuck that.
I think pain is a teaching experience. We spoke about that a few episodes back when we asked where kids develop fear, probably from some sort of pain. But that's no different to sort of when we become adults. So when I'm going through more so the emotional pain, whether it's the struggles of business or relationship or, you know, stuff in family, I think of it almost like a teaching experience because, yeah, it sucks in the moment and you got to learn to deal with it. But once you're on that other side, you've dealt with something that maybe other people haven't dealt with yet. And I think that separates you from other people in how you're going to deal with situations going forward. I'm pretty lucky I haven't had like any big close family deaths and stuff like that. I know that's going to rock me. Other people have dealt with that earlier on. So maybe if you look side by side, they're in a better position because they've felt the pain, they've done the grief, and they've got teachings from it.
Yes and no. It's all situational. Everyone's going to deal with shit differently.
Oh, they'll deal with it differently, but I don't know. It's maybe a glimmer of hope. Like when you are in pain, you know that there's some positives that could come out of it.
Well, I think that's going to all come down to mindset. If you were one of those people that like you can sit there now and go, okay, whenever I deal with pain, there's always going to be something positive that's going to come out of it. You subconsciously are going to try and look for that then. If someone's sitting there and they're not thinking that, you know, within pain there's like hope or motivation or something, that person's not going to look for it.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to say it. That's, I guess, the light at the end of the tunnel of pain. And yeah, maybe that's just my way of coping with it, but it seems to work. So it sucks at the time. It always sucks, but there's always going to be some light. We tell that to boys all the time.
Most of the time. Sometimes you just got to find your own light. That's the thing. With just like move yourself out of that situation where if you stay in the same place, there's always going to be pain. Sometimes you need to find where the pain isn't and go there.
Hey, that's a good little metaphor.
There you go.
Get away from Pain Island.
Fuck Pain Island. Yeah. You could also call it like, I don't know, removing yourself from toxic situations.
The last one I wanted to touch on, and I think this is kind of a sad topic. I don't know, but I've spoken to a couple girls lately, and you know, some of them are like older women, and the OnlyFans situations come up, and they're quick to be judgy about it. They're quick to, you know, call the guys paying for OnlyFans creeps, and I know like there's a lot of chat on that in Blokes Advice, like what kind of sad sack of shit is paying for this shit, and I really thought about it. And this isn't something that's spoken about a lot. And I've developed a bit of a theory and an explanation that I've told these ladies, and I don't know, they thought it made sense, so I thought I'd share it. If you look at the average guy, right, we're talking 5 out of 10, doesn't have a great job, doesn't have a whole lot of money. His pool of potential available mates or even people that he can communicate with, people he can get some basic needs from in terms of talk and maybe some validation for himself that he's okay is not very big, because women are living in they're on a different spectrum than men, right? So you can look at, let's call it a 3 out of 10 guy. He's short, he's got no money, he's got a shitty job, and he's overweight. It's not great. No girl's ever talking to him. But the girl in the same position, she's still got options, right? There's still blokes out there that'll, you know what? Yeah.
Yep, I gotcha.
You know. So for that bloke, he's living in a lonely world,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think it's fair to call him a creep when he's just trying to find a way to get some of these basic core needs met. Like, I'm all for encouraging him to be better. Like, you can go out and work out, you can get a better job, you can improve yourself. I'm all about that, but also don't kick him while he's down. Like, that's just my explanation of dudes that pay for OnlyFans, I guess.
Well, I guess even going back from that then, so if men and women aren't on the same spectrum in the dating, like, I've been out of the dating scene for a very long time, so I'm unaware of all this. But even on social media, like, you can see the way that men and women are treated differently is, well, even you look at, you know, some women will post, they could be maybe on the lower spectrum of, you know, that rating that everyone uses.
A sub 5, we could call it.
They're going to cop like some serious amount of love for it, which is good. Like, you know, prop everyone up. Got no issues with that. But if we're going to do that, prop the fucking blokes up too. Like, don't just focus on one side. Like, you know, if you see some ordinary rig posting himself up online, get the fuck behind him. Love him. Show him some love.
Yeah, that's not the world we live in, and it's not going to happen. I think we just got to be like, that's the realities of the world. So for these blokes that aren't getting much love and attention, like, A, don't call them creeps, and B, try and lift them up in some ways. The girls aren't going to lift them up, so we're here to lift you up, brothers.
I mean, Budgie Smuggler tried doing their thing with Most Ordinary Rig.
Yeah,
That
how'd that work out for you?
Oh, I don't want to talk about my entry. I'm still fucking dirty about that.
It's a good story, yeah.
Oh, look, blew it up in the first year, didn't even get a call back. I'm filthy about it. But oh well, what is it? You live and you learn. Now look at us. Sitting here, talking shit, telling everyone to prop up average looking blokes. So if you're an average bloke, put yourself out there. Put it out to the world, show off your average rig, do whatever the fuck you want to do. And if you're not, get the fuck behind them anyway. Like, show some love. Show some love to everyone. It's not hard to fucking do. Stop this tall poppy syndrome bullshit that Australia's got.
That's true. Or try and be less average. Actually do something, improve your situation.
Or just be better. We've been saying that for fucking weeks now, like months. It's been months.
And ladies, just drop your standards for us. Like, wouldn't hurt.
I mean, it doesn't faze me. I'm sorted.
You're settled, yeah, we'll see. And on that note, guys, I think we're going to sign another episode out. So this has been the things blokes don't talk about enough. So if there's any of them in particular that you found resonated with you, drop what you think about them in the comments. And yeah.
You can find us on all socials. You should know where we're at by now. But if you don't, it'll be down below. And as always, be better. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Better Bloke. If you got anything out of it, show some love by dropping a 5-star review below.
If you want to learn more about everything we're doing, head to the description, hit the links and follow us on the socials. If you want to learn more about the project, head to betterblokeproject.org.